Hi, all. It's Jan of the Jan Files. Hope you are well, and thank you for being here. I hope that you have subscribed to my channel, either on YouTube and Substack, or whatever. I could use the support. I'm going to talk about Epstein once again today, and very specifically, I'm going to talk about Les Wexner. I have found his story to be less than believable. And I want to share with you some of the facts of that story. You may know all of this, or you may not, or you may know some of it. So let's get focused on Les Wexner, who is still alive. He's 88 years old. He founded Victoria's Secret and that other thing, The Limited or whatever. And he met Jeffrey Epstein in 1986. He was introduced to him by a mutual friend. And when he was talking with Les Wexner, he told him that the guy who was handling his finances, now this is according to Les Wexner, that Epstein told him that Harold Levin was his name, was cheating him. And so that's how Epstein got the job. This guy got fired and Epstein came in, and Epstein was paid a total of $200 million to Epstein over a period of 20 years. 1987 to 2007. Yet Wexner will tell you, or tell us, that he didn't know Jeffrey that well. They weren't really that friendly. But yet he gave, this is mind-boggling. He gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney. And that over like everything. It's like crazy. Who would do that? And if you're this, supposed amazing businessman, right? Millions and millions and millions of dollars. You just hand over shit to this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, who has got no degree, no certificate, no nothing. And I'm not saying you need all that to know what you're doing. But if you're that big, I would assume that you would have people checking him out at some point. But no, he gave him $200 million over that time. And he also, let me just tell you exactly what here we go, had access to in his, he was able to do tax and estate planning. He was able to buy real estate and sell real estate. I mean, this isn't small stuff, right? It's not like he can just take a look at your bank account with your knowledge. No, this was far bigger. And it's crazy that he made $200 million as a wealth and estate plan. Doing what? Now, that is the question that a lot of publications, including the New York Times, has asked. So this is a sentence from the New York Times. States flatly that the biggest mystery is what exactly the billionaire got out of his relationship with Epstein. Wexner has never given a detailed accounting of what Epstein did for him. And it wasn't until, now listen to the date, 2007. We know what happened in 2007. 2007, Epstein was arrested and, went into a settlement agreement with the Miami-Dade police, I think it is. I always get Miami-Dade, Palm-Dade, whatever, Florida. Police, district attorney, where he got that plea deal that was an abomination. That was 2007. So it just happened to be when Les Wexner, I guess, found out that Jeffrey Epstein was cheating him. 20 years later, around the time of the non-prosecution agreement, where Epstein was getting held up, being prosecuted, and he then decides that's the time. Now, this is a man who said he didn't know Epstein well. He was in Epstein's birthday book. He wrote a note that said, "I know what you really want," or something along those lines, and drew a pair of breasts on his little note in his birthday book. And then the next page was a picture of him and Epstein, Wexner, and Wexner's wife on board Wexner's boat. Now, again, according to Wexner, they weren't really all that friendly. Makes sense? Doesn't make sense, does it? Right? 20 years, he's on his boat, but they weren't that friendly. He just wrote this birthday card with breasts on it. So he had no idea, he said, what Epstein was doing. None whatsoever. Okay? Now, there is two people who would disagree with that. And the first one is Maria Farmer. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Maria Farmer. You probably have if you're really paying attention to this. Her and her sister were both abused by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Maria Farmer found herself. She was flown out to this house, a private guest cottage in Ohio. That's where Wexner's from. And she was there because they wanted her there so she could paint. She's a painter. And they were giving her this opportunity to be there and just paint, kind of like in residence, so to speak. But then at one point, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell raped her, and she barricaded herself in that little house that was on Wexner, surrounded by Wexner property. The property that she was in had been Wexner's, and she tried to get out. And according to Maria Farmer, that the security guard wouldn't let her out. And she called a sheriff who said, according to her, we work for the Wexners. And finally, she was able to get out because her father had to drive from Kentucky to Ohio and pick her up. She reported that to the FBI in 1996. The FBI did nothing about it. So that's the first time. And they said, Wexner said, or somebody on Wexner's team said something about, we weren't responsible for that house. No, that, he's like denying that he had anything to do with it. And yet there is a security guard that was quoted by the Washington Post in 2019 that said, yes, we were responsible for patrolling that entire area, including where that cottage was. So that's one story. The other story is Virginia Giuffre, who we all know, who committed suicide last year in 2025. She has been kind of leading the survivors, even though she's not here. Her book just published, but she published in 2016 in a deposition. She said that he, being Wexner, had raped her 3 times, and that it could have been as many as 10. So that's what she said in a deposition in 2016. That lawsuit was with Alan Dershowitz, and so this testimony was coming out in relationship to this lawsuit with Dershowitz, which eventually just went away. And I mean, there was no settlement, there was no agreement of any kind. It just ended. And I responded to this the other day. I said, she just said, I may have been wrong. Not about Wexner, about Dershowitz. So Wexner's in the Epstein files. He has testified before the Oversight Committee. He had nothing to say. I think he treats this like a joke. He's 88 years old. He's probably not going to get, be held accountable for anything. The only thing that may happen is maybe his legacy when everything comes out is tarnished. I don't know. I'm just looking at this from a distance, and I find it hard to believe that after 20 years of knowing somebody, that you're not friendly, that you're not friends. Oh, and let me, there is a line here. Hold on. This is when I get too many. Here. Just to say, Maria Farmer who I just talked about, said that Epstein told her, Les Wexner loves me. He'll let me do anything. So that's one person we need to still keep on the radar, right? I mean, he said he dropped him because he was cheating him. The timing is unbelievable. The fact, there are a lot of unbelievable things about this. And then, you know, if it hadn't been for Les Wexner, it's highly unlikely that Epstein would have been able to build the network that he did. Out of that money, whether it was Wexner's or some, but during that period of time, and it was working for Wexner's, he paid he invested in a modeling agency run by Jean-Luc Brunel. And he has his own horrible record of abusing women and trafficking women in Paris. And he was part of this new modeling agency, which was operating at like a $48 million loss. So basically what a lot of people understand is that that was a way for them to procure young girls, especially young foreign girls, so that they wouldn't have the kind of access to family and friends, obviously, that they would if they were doing this in Europe. So anyway, Wexner is very directly responsible for aiding and abetting Epstein. The other person that came along, and now Wexner ended in 2007, and then what came along was Leon Black. Leon Black basically paid the same thing to Epstein. It wasn't as much, maybe close, $168 million for Epstein to handle his tax and estate affairs. Like, what the hell do you do for that kind of money? Somebody really needs to say, what do you do? And they haven't. Nobody has an explanation for it. Like the New York Times said, what did these guys pay for? What did Leon Black pay for? He is in the Epstein files, accused by 2 different women of raping them. That's Leon Black. And we have Virginia Giuffre accusing Les Wexner in a deposition. So both of these men enabled Epstein to continue what he was doing. There was a gap in between the two of them of about 5 years. And Jeffrey Epstein only supposedly made $5 million. Again, what the hell was he doing with all this money that he got paid? That's a whole nother question. Like, what did he do with it? Yes, he owned several properties, and it's not $200 million worth of real estate. I can assure you that. And there's so many unanswered questions, but it's still important to press, and get this out there. Tag these guys, hashtag these guys. We need more pressure, and we need to make sure that we're continuing on with this story. Now, there's 2 new things that came up, and I'm trying to get to really quickly. Katie Fang's lawsuit is going forward. She has to respond on Monday, and then the DOJ has 2 weeks to respond to her. I thought this was a stupid delay. I was wrong. The judge is really doing what he needs to do to make sure the appellate court won't throw it out, or do whatever he can to hope they won't throw it out. And so that's the other thing. And the last thing I want to tell you about is there's a direct obstruction by the DOJ, the administration, because the New Mexico AG is being denied access to the files and evidence, a cover-up. So nothing new there, folks. Stay focused, stay on Epstein. Please support me. Take care. Thanks.